So, basically what I'm going to go over today with you guys is a little bit of how I started Royale, some of my experiences of being now a business owner, how that makes you gray, and what it's like to own a business that, quite frankly, I've been so humbled and honored to be a part of, over the last 7 years. It hasn't always been easy, and it's definitely quite the journey, and it's something that I can just share with you guys a little bit of what I go through on a daily basis. But I actually wanted to start off with my demo reel when I was sitting where you guys were sitting. I don't know if you guys want to see it. It was originally 15 minutes. I'm not going to show you all 15 because that's a lot of time, and I want to get to your questions. So I'm going to show you a couple little bits and pieces of that. So here it goes.
I hate computers. It wasn't a matter of just learning the stuff. It was a matter of having to change my behavior to sit in front of the computer for hours and hours and hours.
I like to dream. Yes, right between the sound machine.
I found out about Full Sail by reading Wired magazine. I saw an ad in the back. My name is Don Howell. I'm from Long Island, New York. Not New Jersey, and to everybody that thinks I'm from Jersey, you're wrong. My project was on street art, which would be graffiti found in inner cities that isn't recognized as art by anybody. There's a part where you actually get to write your name in graffiti, look at the galleries, show people that don't get a chance to see it, how artistic these people are that do this work.
Okay, so I had an afterthought, by the way, so I'm not even going to go in there, but I'm going to show you footage of me when I was 19.
Wait. Are you recording? Because if you are, then you're supposed to hit that front button. After going through all 3 programs, I've met virtually everyone in the school. One of my biggest dreams is that I would like to work at either DreamWorks or Industrial Light and Magic as an editor. My name is Jayson Whitmore, and I'm from Elmira, New York. Nell Johnson has been a huge influence. Dan Novotnick, too, of digital media. He's just been phenomenal. I really enjoyed 3D animation. I just made up like a little story of this nerd ball just sitting there, and all of a sudden this bully ball comes in and like bullies the nerd ball and then just eats the nerd ball, but the nerd ball can't do anything about it. Is there anything else? Okay.
I don't know, I kind of sound like a Valley Girl in there. Like the nerd ball comes in and the bully ball. So anyway, this was a grad video that I put together on my off time. It wasn't a part of the requirement, but honestly, this is what got me hired because I did everything. I directed, worked the camera, I set up the lighting, I did everything on it. And it was through this project, not any of the other stuff. Like back in that time, in 1999, this new world of advertising didn't really exist. So I don't think that anybody really knew how to prepare us to go out into the world with a proper demo reel. So that's what I came back and helped, with saying like, yeah, basically that got laughed at, at a company I went to back in the day. So anyway, I want to show you where I'm at now, just a couple years later. So this is Royale's demo reel.
No time for dreaming. Gotta get on up and do my thing. Dream while you're sleeping. Time slowly creeping. Open up your eyes before it's too late. Try a little harder. Stop gazing over yonder. Wake up, you get your break.
Thank you. So, we all grow up, as you can see, from my original days of my very first After Effects project that said Jayson Whitmore, commitment to avid editing, and we come a long way in our careers, and just because you're a student and just because your student work doesn't look like the work that my company produces right now doesn't mean that it won't in the future, and it all really, it depends on you as the individual wanting to love what you do and really want to do anything really to succeed in this industry. This industry's tough. Now, back in the day when I started, it was kind of a new thing, and now everybody has Adobe After Effects, everybody has Photoshop, everybody has Illustrator, everybody looks at Motionographer, and they see all the greatest stuff. And I'm still, and now as a studio, competing with some of the best. I compete up against Buck all the time, PSYOP, Imaginary Forces, Brand New School. If I hear one more time that Buck is going to be in the same pitch as us, I'm going to scream, because, we love Buck, and I love Buck, and they're awesome. So basically, I started Royale 7 years ago after a project I did for Apple with Brian Holman and Jen Lucero. And basically, we were pulled through the trenches of this project, and we went out afterwards, and we sat down, and we took a couple shots of tequila, I won't lie, and we commiserated about this insane project that we had just done. And we realized that we were all still friends after it. We were working 22-hour days. It was crazy, no sleep. It was a really intense one. And I had been freelance up to that point. I had already been in the industry for a good 7 years up to that point, and I had been freelance, and I never thought that I would start a company, ever. It was kind of in my mind, but I just was so scared to take that next step. This is a huge risk. You're putting your life on the line. You're essentially going into a lot of debt and just hoping it's going to work, So when you guys think about starting a business, that's a normal feeling, I remember, I'll never forget the day that I walked away from my old job, which was being a freelancer, and then started my new job, which was owning a company. And the roles are so incredibly different from being an artist on the box to running the ship. It's the kind of stuff that you get thrown daily it's pretty wild. So anyway, Royale, we're a design company. Essentially, we really believe that the whole world of advertising is changing pretty drastically. When was the last time you watched a commercial on television? It's like you're watching it on your mobile device. You're watching, how many Hulu subscribers? Couple, okay. What's your main source of watching stuff? Is it the internet? YouTube? Okay, mostly YouTube? Netflix? Okay, Netflix, right? So that's I'm on the Promax board of BDA. I sit across the tops of our industry, the heads of the networks, and I'm sitting there, and there is definitely a buzz happening right now about Netflix, as you guys all know, that's becoming a major source of competition right now. And how is that ad revenue and that model going to change over the course of the next 5 years? So before, it was very easy before the internet had a big fat pipe, that you could actually download everything. Before, you had to watch television and watch commercials real time, but when have we done that? I hate commercials, by the way. And that's what funds my life. But I'm just sitting there with my TiVo, and like once in a while I'll come across one that catches my eye, but for the most part I click through. So we are we demand it now society. Like we've changed, all of us. The social fabric of the world has changed to, I want it now, right? I want it right now. I want it to be downloaded. I don't want it to be pixelated. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be cheap. And I want it now. So what's interesting as a business perspective is that sort of thinking has affected everybody's bottom line. Really, we've sped up a lot. And when you get into the workforce, what's wild is that we come up with the craziest concepts and beautiful looking boards within 2 days. That's all we got. I get a call on a Friday from Nike saying, I need the best pitch that you can possibly give me by Monday at noon. So they call 2 other companies, probably Buck, probably another company, and we're all competing against each other. So essentially what I need to do to get that sexy, cool project is work my butt off over the weekend and then present something that makes sense to their brand and is on point and it's visually stimulating and something that's very cool. What's kind of interesting is that as a design company, we are problem solvers. We solve problems. What effect to use? How do we render it? How expensive do we want to make that render? How do you optimize and make everything efficient? So I ended up getting a call from MTV in Europe to do a project that was called Mtv Pulse. I don't know if you guys have seen this. And what's interesting about this project is that they basically said on the call that they wanted Inception, right? Well, Inception was a fairly large budget, as we all know, like in the millions to be able to create. And they had not even close to that to be able to create 5 spots referencing Inception. So my head of production at the studio was like, oh no, we can't do this, we can't do this. And she's shaking her head on the phone, and that really irritates me because our job now has become to how do we make that budget work and don't spend over that budget, but take on a project that's cool, that can move our company forward because you're only as good as your last project, right? So you guys are probably familiar with most of our recent work. There's a lot of stuff you haven't seen, which I will show you actually. But the challenge is, how do you make this work in this Inception budget work with no money? So essentially, I think it's kind of a cool opportunity because they're referencing some pretty cool stuff. So I turned to my business partner, Brian, and so this is one thing in business that you should know and take note, is that you always pair up with somebody who can fill a weakness of yours, right? You always want to be working with somebody who has different skill sets so you complement each other. So in our business structure, I'm both creative, but I'm also the entrepreneur and the sales guy. I help sell the company. Brian Holman, who I don't know if you guys know, you should know, he's very quiet. He doesn't like to be in front of the camera. He's what I like to lovingly refer to as the secret weapon. Have you guys seen him, Brian? Okay, he's amazing. He would never know he's that amazing. He looks like he has like a lazy boy at home, and he's just like not cool, trendy, but he's like the funniest guy, but he's quiet and he kind of intimidates, which I love about him. And then I have Jen Lucero, who's my power lady. She's awesome. She keeps our bills paid. She makes sure that the company's running, because 2 creatives running a company financially, not a great idea. So need somebody who's actually gonna make sure the lights are on. So essentially, I really wanted to take on this project, and it was kind of like, I was being told no, I can't make it work financially, and this is the constant struggle you have with producers, spreadsheets, need to make it come on budget. And they're right. We're getting paid, right? We're paying our mortgages, we're paying our rent, we're paying our car, we're paying, our trips to places off of this work. So everybody needs to get paid. I wish we didn't, because it would be so much fun just to do cool work. So we came up with some storyboards. So these were the boards we came up with in like 2 days. to kind of show that we could do it. And then we did a test. And so ideally, what we wanted to do was show, so this is the patio at Royale, and Brian has this little chip in his brain that none of us have, and I don't know where he got it from, but he's just able to do this in like an hour. And so basically I turn to Brian and I say, hey, Brian, I'd really like to do this inception spot and prove that we can do it for the budget. How can we do this? And he's like, well, what I'm thinking is that what we can do is we can take photographs of a real environment and we can map them onto 3D geometry, and then we can explode it. So then you're gonna get this kind of photoreal-ish look, but then it's gonna be like, it'll feel a little bit more stylized once it explodes. So this was our initial test. It was done in an hour and a half. So then you go on to the next phase, and then, so the next phase is you go into storyboarding out. So we had 5 spots that we had to do in one shooting day. Now, just to give you perspective on how much it costs to shoot in LA, one day of shooting is from $80,000 to $120,000 a day, just to shoot, right? So if you're thinking about that, we had to shoot 5 spots in one day on a budget that was less than that. So say 120, we had less than that to do the whole project. So how are we gonna do that and still be able to break even in the end? So you have to be really planned. So basically what we did was we came up with storyboards. So as you can see up in here, it's like, on the top row, these are all the spots. In each row is one spot. So if you look at the upper left-hand corner, one of the ideas was that there were these this couple in a bathroom, they start making out, and then the dude or the girl throws the dude against the wall, and then it shatters, and it's kind of cool and fun and whatever. So we storyboard that out. And then we decided to do a green screen shoot, because instead of shooting it on location and practically where you have to futz with the lights, you guys have shooting experience? Do you have to go through it? Okay, you know how annoying it is when you have to relight every 2 seconds in greens. So we didn't want to waste the time relighting anything. So we decided to do it all on green screen. So essentially we shot all on green screen, and then we went out and we shot plates, and we actually measured the rooms and approximately where they were. We shot plates of bathrooms. We shot a loft. We shot a girl's bedroom. We shot a skating park. We shot all these things. And then in the end, as you'll see, this is right? So now here's the making of. First comp. So, we did 5 of those, right? So, here's another one. I'll just show you one more. And then here's the making of. So what you do is you start with, the edit, and then you kind of fill it in throughout the process. So we were actually able to make that budget work, which was pretty cool. So that's the business side of it, right? The business of commercial art. So What's interesting in the business once you get in is that though you are artists, we are beholden to our clients. So we're not in, so, you know, I read Motionographer, I get a little sensitive if people post stuff, about, you know, our work or whatever, and, you know, you get people and they like to pull everything apart, it sucks, well, whatever, you know. But the thing is that, you know, we can do really good work, but it's really dependent on how far the client wants to go. Because if you think about it, in advertising, you have the client, then you have the advertising agency, and then you have us. Advertising agency basically gets a brief from the client of what, and it's like all this like mathematics and, you know, target goals of, you know, how much money did they actually want to make on the advertising of the product. You know, a lot of times advertising agencies have like 500 million, you know, to do these type of projects, and then it whittles down to us. And so by the time it gets to us, they've already gone through like 8 months of exploration and testing and all that stuff, and we're just there to jam out and make it look really good. So when I'm looking for, you know, from somebody who's at the studio, somebody who's able to listen and put their touch to it as an artist, but then also keep on concept, which is super important. Have you guys seen the Oreo campaign? Yes. John? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through a little bit of the Oreo campaign. So in business, things can get slow sometimes, and one of our slow moments that we had, I jumped on a plane, and as you do as a business owner, and I basically went and said, hey, what's up, to a ton of people, right? It was like, hey, what's happening? Hey, let me show you my reel. Hey, what's going on? And so basically, one of my buddies that I worked with a long time ago had this Oreo campaign, and he showed me the pitch for the agency to get the work was probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, this book was so beautiful. Everything was so beautifully designed. They composed the song in-house. And then they actually had this one section, which would never fly with Oreo, but I thought was pretty cool, where they hooked up electrodes to the actual Oreo, right? Because I guess the cream conducts electricity, just FYI. And so you can hook up electrodes to it, and then they, you know, took off the cookie part, and then they were actually playing the Oreo. So they were creating an on-off by actually being able to run a low voltage electrical current that won't kill you, but that you can actually play. So they would actually play the actual Oreo. So I was just like, okay, if this does not go through, I've lost all confidence in advertising, period, you know. And luckily it did, it went through. So Jorge, his name is Jorge, he, from Mexico, he's amazing. He's like, you know, he's pretty amazing. And so basically, he thought we would be a perfect fit because we love to do character work. So we came up with all these characters, and so we created this world of characters. So as you can see up here, I don't have my pointer, but we have all kinds of cool characters that we initially had proposed to them, including Bob Ross. Remember the guy, Happy Little Trees? All right, so that was Bob Ross. We have, you know, the piglets. We have obviously the Godzilla. We have all kinds of really cool stuff. So basically, we came up with all these characters and the style of these characters to tell this story. And what we love to do is tell stories at Royale. I mean, that's like hands down my favorite thing to do. I'd love to get into doing episodics one day, but you know, so we created all these characters. There's Chuck Norris on the right-hand side. Sometimes the guys like to, you know, pick on me a little bit, and so that Oreo on the left-hand side is me lifting weights, you know. So anyway, so basically then we went into like figuring out, well, how do we define the render style, right? So we want to take a look and really define and have the client hone in on a render style so we have something, because basically, you know, we have no time to produce this stuff. We have like a month, basically. So we really have to nail down what the look is, what the story is, the storyboard, get it all approved. And then we also have to have the render technique. All of that is happening simultaneously, so it's happening very quickly. So then, you know, we collaborate with the agency, and then we just basically kind of go back and forth, and it happens very quickly. And we put together an animatic. So this was our first animatic that we put together for the agency.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo to somebody out there who I didn't know.
So that was Oreo, and then this here was the final spot. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but here.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo to somebody out there who I didn't know. Would they laugh after I'd gone, or would they pass that wonder on? I wonder how it changed your point of view if I gave one to you.
So that's Oreo. Thank you. Thanks, guys. So yeah, we love doing character work. That's the best project. So anyway, we made that happen. We actually made money off of this, which is good because we're in it to make money. The things that you don't realize in a studio is it seems like the studio is making a lot of money, which we do, but we are also spending a lot of money to make it work. So the trick is to hold on to some of that money, that little bit, that's left over, profit, which is called profit, right? And then that's what basically, employs the front desk person. That's what buys new render farm equipment. By the way, we have one of the best render farms. We spent $150,000 on it, and it's badass. So anyway, sorry, geek moment. And then you have. You have the electricity, you have the storage, you have all kinds of stuff you don't even think about. So when you go into a studio, it's very, very, very complex in how it works, and you have this thing called cash flow, right? So you have to make sure, this is what's interesting and what's a trend that's happening in the industry, is that usually how it works is a company comes to us, pitches up against 3 companies, then we win, and then usually the company that is hiring you will give you the first 50% of the budget so you can get started. What's happening right now is that everything is moving so fast that we start and finish and it's on air and we haven't even received the first 50% yet, which is scary because we're paying all those people. We're front loading that money from our own bank account to make that happen for the client. So you have to be very conscientious about how the money flows through a company, just make sure that everybody gets paid, payroll's met, and it's a very delicate balance of making sure you're covered, So that's the business side, so it's boring, but whatever. So this is another piece that we did for Nike. I'll show you. So all that was green screen. Everything was recreated in CG, including the end where she ran off. And her foot was jank A. I'm just saying, that was like, I don't know, bunions and all over her shoe, her foot. We had to remove it. Had to do some foot touch up. Because athletes' feet are not that pretty, I'm just saying. They actually use them. So that project led into another project. Have you guys seen this one, the Nike Tech Fleece? Okay, so this was the first time we ever did cloth sim, right? And so we have such a really good rapport with Nike. We have a great trust thing going with them. And they basically said, can you do cloth? And I was like, yeah, we can do cloth, And so as a design company, we're always, figuring out how to execute the project. And so that's where your producer team comes in it's very important. So you have the creative team, right? You have your creative director, you have your art director, you have, the designers, and then you have, like all of the animators, and you have the VisFX supervisor and all that stuff. And then you have the producer team, which basically is making sure that stuff is getting done, really. I mean, they're the ones that are constantly keeping it on schedule, so we're not, time is money, right? So time is money, gotta keep it on schedule, gotta keep the client, making sure that they're going to meet their deadline. We're not going to go over budget. It's pretty stressful to be the producer. So anyway, as a design company, we can figure out how to do cloth sims. So basically, Nike came to us and said, we have this new fabric that's in the brand, like the coolest thing ever that's come out. It's brand new technology. It's an innovative fabric. Basically, it's this very lightweight fabric that has like this hollow interior, so it becomes lightweight, but then the way it's constructed, it keeps you warm. So I thought it was pretty cool. So when we got the initial brief from the client, it looked very space age. That was the first word that came to my head, was space age, or I wanted to call it alien, but I think that was kind of a bad word. So then I kind of twisted it around and called it otherworldly, which sounds a little better, you know. So as we were kind of going through and we were actually researching how it was made, we were actually really inspired by the process of how it was made. And so we found that this was actually made by this circular loom that's been around for a long time. And I was like, wow, that thing looks sci-fi. That's pretty cool. What if we did like this otherworldly, futuristic space that's all Nike, and since it's this new innovative fabric, that's how we could communicate it to the client. So we ended up coming up with a couple different space ideas. How does it going to look, inside of a space? So, we have like sort of a little bit more of a modern space here. We have they're actually all modern, but do we like what does the environment look like? Is it gallery-like? Is it like a modern abstraction of a gymnasium? Which would make sense for Nike. And then obviously we came up with our final look, which was this, and that's what they approved. So then the loom, like I was saying, the loom was super cool. So basically when we went and we researched the loom, which I wish I had actually a picture of the loom. Just look up circular looms on Google it. But it's kind of like this. So then we went through and we actually hired an artist to come and basically just invent looms. Like, what does a space age loom look like? So these were all the sketches that he came up with. And then, then we started getting to a little bit closer to the final render. This is what it started looking like. And then we pitched this whole in-store idea. So now that we have Seattle, and Seattle's all digital, right? So we thought, how cool would it be to do an in-store installation where you actually walked up to the fabric, you felt it, and there was a projection, and when you felt it, like it reacted to you, which would be really cool. So this was the in-store concept of it, if they had the budget. So that was kind of like pie in the sky. Nike has a lot of interactive stuff in their stores. Just thinking about it, like, how do you sell it, right? So if I'm a company like Nike and I have in-store stuff, I actually went to their in-store stuff at several different locations and saw that they had similar, setups of technology. So I was like, well, let's pitch them the cheap idea, which is like, something that they already have technology-wise in there, so you could actually touch. So this was actually the final piece that we came up with. So that's that. Thank you. All right, so the next thing I think I'm going to show, it'll come up. In business, sometimes, how I said you're only as good as your last project. Well, what happens when you can't show your last project? Like, you've just done like some pretty badass stuff and you can't show it. That's how I get my next job, right? I put it out there. I put out PR on that project, and it creates some buzz out in the industry. Everybody's talking about it. It's on Motionographer. I geek out when our stuff is on Motionographer. And if I'm unable to show it, how it looks like we've gone with a big gap of not releasing anything new. But the thing is that we're constantly working. So actually what I'm going to show you guys is something that nobody else has seen yet. And we actually did it in September. Actually, two things. And this project, I don't know if we're going to be able to release. So it's pretty cool. It's for Android. It's for Google. At the very last second, there was this happens a lot, management changes, people kill it, whatever. So that happens a lot. So basically, this is that now we're trying to do is be able to donate this to a non-for-profit because it turned out really great. And we teamed up with another company who was doing the digital component of it. But anyway, here, I'll show you. So basically, we weren't. We don't know what we're going to use this for now. So obviously, it's no longer for Android. So there's a big. She goes to heaven. I don't know. So basically, the story is it sucks to grow up. Essentially, like you following this baby, it's really cute, and then all of a sudden you're like an adult waiting for And the whole idea is it's to remember your youth, and you get it. So, did you guys know that Pegman from Google went away for a little bit? Did y'all know that? I didn't either. But apparently, there were some pissed off people that Pegman went away. So Pegman in Google, you take the little guy, and you drop him, and then he's called Pegman, right? And so he has a following apparently. So Pegman went away, and so we did a spot of the adventures of Pegman while he was away, because they brought Pegman back. So if you go back to Google, he's back. So what's kind of cool is, do you guys know Geronimo at all? Have you ever heard of Geronimo? Anyway, he graduated in 2007. He's this like incredible programmer guy. And so the challenge of this project was, how do we take JavaScript code and encode it and re-encode it so that it will be read by Maya, right? Because basically what we were able to do was take all the data from Google Earth and just use Google Earth as our backdrop, and then manipulate the camera moves, because it's 3D, right? And you should be able to use it. And Google Earth is pretty freaking amazing. If you guys haven't played with it, it's probably one of the coolest apps I've ever seen. So basically what we did was we hired this programmer, and he was able to take Google Earth, and all of the backgrounds on here were from Google Earth, then recoded camera-wise by our animation artists to be able to make this piece. Does that make any sense? Because it hurts my brain just thinking about it. But here, it turned out pretty cool. All that's Google Earth. So yeah, Gmo was, thank you. Gmo just recently came on staff. He's a Full Sail grad. I also have James Lane, who was also a Full Sail grad. And we have Handel Eugene. I don't know if you guys know him. He was one of the newer hire that we just made. And so, yeah, we have several Full Sail people who come in and out. There was actually a guy who I worked with over the summer who's a producer. And he's like, I don't know if you remember it, but you lectured me. And I was like, really? So it's kind of cool. I love seeing you guys when you come out into the industry and then we work together. It's really fun. Any questions so far? Questions? Sorry, I totally sprung that one.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Juan David. I am studying music business, and I wanted to know normally who make your music for.
Yes, I was actually going to talk about
Yes.
that. As you can see, music is the other 50%, right? Without music, it wouldn't be cool. So I have two composers I work with that I love. One, his name is Tony. He has a last name, but I can't remember it right now, so we're going to just call him Tony. So Tony does all of our sort of cinematic music, and then there's this other guy in Ireland. His company is called Echo Lab, and so we work with him in Ireland because he's like amazing. So we do a lot of our music and sound effects work with him in Ireland. He has a great accent too. It's pretty good.
Even though you're so busy, do you still have time to participate in the animating part of everything, or do you just do business?
So the question is, because I'm so busy, if I'm so busy, do I get a chance to actually be hands-on, the box anymore? The answer is not as much anymore. It's been really interesting. It's a very strange. I used to be a lot, but now because I'm really thinking ahead of the game for the company, what my job now is to bring in the coolest projects that I possibly can for the staff, and let Brian, the secret weapon, go in and mold it. So Bryce, I have a bit of say in what goes on, but for now I'm trying to remove myself a little bit more from the creative process and just focus on other creative revenue sources for the company, like apps or different types of ideas and how to move the company forward, because you need somebody as an entrepreneur. That's the one thing. I'll share with you a quick story. Before I started the company, I was reading this book. I have no idea what it was called, so sorry. But I'll share you the story about the book. And they were talking about this woman who was a pie maker and loved making pies, right? And so she was really good at making pies, and she wanted to start her own company. Now, what ended up happening is that she started her own company, but a few months to a year in, she felt like she was a slave to her own company. And that was because in a company, you have a few different headspaces that you need to fill. One is you have the entrepreneur. The other one is you have the manager. You have to make sure stuff's getting done. And then you have the creative, right? And that's sort of like, so basically the managers make sure that the creative's on point. The creatives are just there to be creative and make beautiful things. But then you have the manager, and then you have the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur has to keep thinking forward. So what was happening to her was that she was having to be all three of those things, and she didn't have enough time in the day. So she was working 18, 20 hours a day. I got very lucky. I'm the entrepreneur of the company. Jen is, and we all share certain roles, like I'm also a manager, but so then Jen would be the manager, and Brian's the creative. So we have the three, so I can actually go home and sleep sometimes, because it does get fairly stressful, so. I want to show you one more piece, and then we'll do questions, because I know we have a lot of them, but I wanted to show you the bell ringer. Have you guys seen this piece? Okay, so bell ringer, we did this as a Royale piece. We decided that we wanted to release a fundraiser for Hurricane Sandy, so we created this character. Her name is Edith. So these were our initial sketches of Edith. right? So, and the idea is we first started with a story. We actually opened this up to the staff to submit, and we got some really, really good submissions of stories. This one actually won. It was Kyle Smith. He was a Full Sail grad. And basically, so these were all the designs of Edith, right? And I love this Edith. She's funny with her little boobs. Her granny boobs. So anyway, so we have a dark sense of humor as a company, and we like to release things that aren't kosher. I really don't care. I love Tom and Jerry. I mean, I love Tom and Jerry. I love, I love all the older cartoons, Looney Tunes. You know, Daffy getting his face shot off was awesome. Like, we can't do that anymore. So we have a darker sense of humor. So we came up with this whole, this whole perspective. And the story was those poor little old ladies that are just ringing their bell, right? Salvation Army ladies ringing their bell, and they just want you to throw them a quarter. And we're all like, too busy, and they're just sitting there ringing their bell. So we thought, what if, because it was a fundraiser for Hurricane Sandy, what if we had our Edith, like she was ringing her bell, and nobody was paying attention because they were all too busy, and then she gets pissed, right? So then what if Edith then throws the bell and then hits somebody and then realizes, and then some money rolls into the screen, and then realizes that she can actually make money by beating people up, basically. So then she gets it, and then she starts like throwing the bell and getting all the stuff.
Video game logic.
Right, yeah. So this was our initial wireframe of Edith. And then this was, I just love, her butt is just too much. I mean, come on, like this frame right here, I was just like, this is amazing. So this is the stuff I live for at Royale. Like, I just love that we do these little projects. So these were the storyboards. So we start at 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the whole, basically the progression of the entire story, right? And then here was the website that we put together, and we ended up raising $10,000 because the year before we did the Impossible Present, and we had over like 250,000 hits, which is pretty incredible. So here is the bell ringer. And I'll show you Impossible Present, since we're on this theme of hurting, digital characters. So. Thanks, guys. All right, so now I'm a little early, but I want to get to your questions. This is always my favorite part. I always feel like I just sit in there rambling on. So, who has some questions? You, sir.
When you originally go to a company to try to pitch an idea, do you usually go with like non-disclosure agreements on hand?
To a company so if we go to a company, do we go with non-disclosure? No. I mean, usually the company will have us sign a non-disclosure. But when we're work for hire, essentially they own our work. So it's a bummer. So we've been bitten in the past by a couple clients where they told us they had a certain budget, but they didn't have that budget, and then we turned it down and they used our idea. But that's completely legal if they pay you a small fee up front. It's not necessarily the most ethical for a company like ours. But yeah, so like super top secret ones where I make everybody sign non-disclosure. You have to like sign your life away, especially with Nike.
Let me get you a mic. Hold on one second. Sorry. You can all hear it.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you looking to open more offices in different states later on?
Offices in different states. Well, we have Seattle, so we have LA and Seattle. I'd say probably New York might be the next one, but I don't want to grow it too big. I mean, right now we have 75 people. It's like a lot of people. So, we have 20 staff, but then we have about 75 between both offices. So we might not.
To you, thank you.
You were talking about a couple of full sail students that you have on your team. How often do you add more people onto your team?
It really depends. I mean, it just depends. If somebody really great comes along, then we try and make room for them. But, for the most part, our staff is, I'm really bad at doing internships, and it's terrible, I know, I'm sorry, guys. But, I want to start that program, at Royale, and we have a new head of production who can manage that. So definitely I'm going to be pulling together an internship application for people from, especially for Full Sail. I mean, you can Facebook me. I'll answer any of your questions. Take a look at your portfolios. If I don't get back, don't get offended. Did you guys see the other panel that I was on? Okay, so don't think I don't like you. It's just don't know that I just get really busy. Some people get really offended and sad. Sometimes I really like somebody's work and I click on it and then I forget about it. So.
Yep.
Oh, sorry?
We'll get you next.
What sizes were your clients within the first year?
What sizes?
Yeah.
The type of projects I was taking on?
Yeah.
They were actually pretty good, I have to say. I was genuinely shocked. When I first started the company, I was able to secure $50,000 of angel investment money from a friend of mine, an angel investor, in case you guys don't know, is somebody who participates in the company but doesn't ask for anything in return. So that's always scary in the beginning, is giving away too much of your company, because it can severely hurt your productivity in the end. So my friend Tyler, he was just like, you need to start a company, and I took his advice. So, but in the beginning, I basically called upon all of my clients in contact base in my Rolodex and said, hey, I'm starting a company, and I got a lot of people who were very supportive. So we started off with some pretty scary projects, but the one project that launched us was our Flaunt Diesel piece that we did in 2007. So you needed that one hit piece to say, hey, we're here, and motionographer covered it, and then all of a sudden people, like most of our staff today joined because of that one piece. They thought it was so cool, so.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Back over here for you, Jason.
Okay.
Yes, I was wondering if all your work was done in-house, like your video clean plates and stuff like that?
Yeah, everything's done in-house. We do everything. We haven't we always bring in freelancers specialists to do projects now. So yeah, everything. Pretty cool.
Hold on, let me get down to you. 1 second.
Sorry.
Want everybody.
What's the average production time for a single project?
Average production time, well, it varies. The projects that I showed you today, For instance, Nike Tech Fleece took about a month and a half. Let's see, what's a really short one? I think, Oreo took about a month. It's average time probably a month and a half. Like 2 months is like luxurious. It's pretty awesome. But that's from design, that's from pitching, design, and completion. It's fast. Oh, sorry. Okay, he'll get you the mic in.
Hey, Jason. I was just wondering, what were some of the larger hurdles that you had to overcome when you first started your company?
Oh, the larger hurdles. Well, I think, gosh, it was weird because I went from being an artist in the pit to being somebody's boss. And I think that was the weirdest thing for me. Because people are scared of me. It's the weirdest, like, I don't know if it's my size or what, but like, people get really nervous around me. And that's okay, I do expect a lot out of my staff. So I think the psychology of knowing that I have to be that guy in order for my company to succeed, and I also have to be that guy to make really tough decisions at times when nobody else is going to make that decision for you. The luxury for working for somebody is that you don't have to deal with any of the other stuff that you have no idea that goes on behind the scenes. Whether that's cash flow, whether that's a slow month, or how or thinking about how you're going to plan your next move in the industry to create more work for you. Like when you have that beautiful Google piece that you can't show, like what's the next piece you're going to put out, and how are you going to how are you going to run PR on it? I think the hardest thing for me at one point, this was a huge learning experience and kind of a really scary moment in the company, was where, like when you're running a company, you're going a million miles a minute. You're just like, you only have time to keep up with the projects. And I think the hardest part is that sometimes you can't predict or grow certain areas of your company fast enough to keep up with the demand of your company. And so what's been interesting is that, when you hit a slow period, and if you're not as profitable, then you have to make some pretty tough decisions. And I think the only time, and I was pretty proud of how we handled this, but in any company, it gets slow, and then when it gets slow, then you start cutting people, and that's sucks. I've been cut in the business. I've been, fired mid-lick of, ice cream cone. Wasn't fun. And then, we essentially, during the slow period, we were faced with the potential to have to cut some of our staff, which killed me. I couldn't sleep at night. So I had an idea. I was like, well, why don't Jen, Brian, and I lay off ourselves, and keep our staff? So we did, but we were still working, obviously for the company. So basically, essentially what I did was, we had a sales guy who was incredible, but he was, we needed more help. We needed an army of people to sell us. So what ended up happening is he kind of choked for a second and didn't know what to do. And in that moment, that's when I say, I know what to do. I need to get on a plane, and I need to go say hi to everybody. And I did, and then and every day I wake up and I'm like, this could go away, this could go away. Even when we're doing great, I'm like, this could go away, this could go away, this could go away. I need to do something more. I have to, it's just chaos in my brain all the time. It's scary. Because not only do I have my clients, I have my staff, and everybody's looking to me, right? I'm the dude who has to be strong all the time. I cannot ever show weakness, and I'm only human, So basically, I jumped on the plane. I was able to win back all of the money lost, pay Bri, Jen, and I back for 4 months of not getting paid, and keep our staff all at the same time. And secure a new sales staff, took our old sales guy, moved him into a new group. Now we have 7 people, including him, plus a Midwest rep, plus a Canadian rep, plus another rep. So we got reps everywhere now. We got reps all over the place. And then I was able to figure out and strategize our digital component up in Seattle during that whole move. So it was weird. It was that dire moment of sink or swim, and you just got to swim. And then when you swim, you realize you're meeting new people, you're learning things, and then you can re-put things together. And I learned a lot from that, that experience. So. absolutely.
How do you go about hiring freelancers? Do you like contact a specific person, or do you like post something on Facebook so everybody can look at it and like contact you? Or
A lot of freelancers are hired by our head of production. So our head of production is integral in putting together the teams. So if you have a specific style, like you do cell animation and you do it really well, then I'm going to call you if I have a cell project. Or, you know, if you have a style, or like you're really good at photoreal, or you're really good at rigging or lighting or character work or whatever that is, she has a whole database of people who are really good at that. And it's all based on, like, we definitely have excommunicated people from Royale, like that'll never come back. I had one guy storm out of the studio and was like, "What the F is this place?" You know, and I was like, "Oh, brother, okay, cross him off the list. You don't do that. He's never gonna work with us again." But, you know, we basically are very selective. We only hire the best. There is no B team. We're too small to have a B team. And we don't hire anybody with an attitude. You could be like the best person, like I was saying in my other speech, but you could be the best person. I will not bring you on if you're arrogant, you know. So, cool.
I think we have one over here.
I'll come back to you.
Hello, Mr. Whitmore.
Hi.
I'd like to say your company is so amazing. And my question is, what is like your production pipeline? Like,
That's a complex one.
I know, I've seen how it is, and it's not like the traditional pipeline. So like when you get like the pitch and the story and everything, like what does it go through, and also like what are the different departments you have in your company?
So a pitch comes in, that essentially is reviewed by Brian and I, and I'm still actively involved in pitches. And then what we do is we assess how much time we have, and then we weigh our options, like who are we up against? Has the other company done work with that client? Did they create a print? Like, you know, there's all these different factors of should we take it on, or how much effort, or what do we put into it? Because everything that we subscribe to or take on, we do the best that we possibly can. And then what ends up happening is then it trickles down into that we assign people on staff. And just to give you guys an idea, like sometimes we can spend upwards to $15,000 to $20,000 on a pitch. It's just a lot of money. It's a lot of coin. I mean, that's, you know, if I don't get a return on that, that's just money out the window. Everybody else is getting paid, but Royale's not, you know. So if we don't win it, we need to be able to, you know, back another, like a project with a bigger budget to afford that. So, so basically we go in and we put all of our bests on, and then we assemble a presentation for the client a few days later. And then we basically send it off to the client, and we get on a phone call with them, and we walk them through. And a lot of times you can really tell if the client's vibing it, or if they're just, you know, passing time because they like their superstars, you know. We have won a lot against Buck, which makes me happy, and PsyOp and Digital Domain and some pretty cool guys. But we've lost a lot, you know, as well. So you can't, some beautiful, beautiful work that'll never be seen, you know, that we've done. They're just in an archive of just this gorgeous stuff, you know. And then if it gets awarded, then we basically assign a producer to it, you know, and the head of production puts together a team. We put together a schedule. The team gets together, we rally, we talk about the project, and then from there it just goes into production. And that's when we start giving birth to it, you know. And then we start assembling it, and then the client is giving feedback all the way along, and then at the very end we deliver it, and it goes on air. So it's pretty much the pipeline.
Since you've been in both like freelance and you've had your own company, do you think it's manageable to be a freelancer as a career, or is it like best to be in some type of company that has like all aspects together?
Right, so as the question, in case you guys couldn't hear, was is it better to be a freelancer, or is it better to find a home as being a staff member? I personally recommend becoming staff somewhere in your career. It's the only way you're gonna learn. And it all depends. Like, I was staff for a while, and then I went freelance. You know, I got laid off, and then I went freelance, and I was charging a lot more money, and I was like, wow, I'm making a lot of money, but I kind of felt weird about making money at that point, because I didn't feel like I was worth that money, but I was charging that money, and it was just weird, you know, because the only thing is that people catch on after a while if you really know your stuff or you don't, and you're charging them a lot of money. And so the only thing you have as a freelancer is your reputation. So being a freelancer set me up to creating a company, because essentially my freelance was my company, but as on a personal level. And then I just added more people to create Royale. So, so essentially, you know, my recommendation is go for a few years. It's really difficult to do, I know, but go for a few years, do the shitty work, and then learn how it all works. And then you can go freelance, and you can make a lot of money freelancing. I mean, it's a pretty good living. The only thing you don't have as a freelancer is a home. So you never know where you're gonna be. It's inconvenient. You know, you never know if your gig is gonna be, especially if you're in LA, you never know if your gig is gonna be over the West Side or the East Side or in Hollywood, or, you know, is it gonna be in San Francisco, or like, where is it gonna be, you know? And you have to accommodate for that. You have to pay your own health insurance. You have to pay your own taxes. You have, I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with freelancing, and it can get you in a lot of trouble if you don't follow all those rules. I personally never thought that I never wanted to go staff again, because my staff choices were poor in terms of how they treated me. I felt like I set up Royale to be as respectful as one can be, you know, to the talent there. We don't, our product is our creative, you know, and our creative is made by human beings, and our human beings like to be appreciated. Right? Like, they like a day off. Like, we like a day off, right? You know, we like to be fed at 7 o'clock at night, you know, if we're gonna be working a late night. We like to hear thank you, and that, you know, we're appreciative of all the work. I never got that. I just got like, you're working the weekend, no question, you know? And I was like, what? You know, like, okay. And that's how I became really good, though. I became very, very efficient. So that's when Brian and I came together, and Brian, my business partner, and I kind of share this unspoken camaraderie, and like, I don't know, I think we have like ESP or something. Like, we don't have to say much, and it gets done. So, so my recommendation, you know, is, you know, learn the ropes. I didn't want to go staff. The only way I would ever go staff again is if I ever built my own place, so I could have control of the people that I want to work with, you know, and demand excellence, because everybody, like, if somebody says I can't do it, I'm like, why can't you do it? You know, like that Nike Tech Fleece piece that we did, I was told that we could never do that piece, and I'm like, why? And they're like, well, it's just too complicated. And I'm like, well, why was PsyOp able to do it? And like, well, you know, that's a different company. Oh, is it? Is it really a different company? No, that's what I want. I want that. Figure it out, you know? And it's like, and then everybody comes off, you know, of the project, and they're proud of it, you know? And it just takes me to say, no, you're better than that. Don't think that we're anything less. We are awesome. We can do this stuff, and we can, but we're not so awesome that we're the best, you know? We have a long way to go. And we always want to continue to grow and get better. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
One back here for you, Jason.
My main question is about costs. So, like, when you first started out, how'd you know what was too much, and like when you were hiring and when you were buying equipment?
In terms of, well, because I had been in the industry for a long time, and that's where Jen comes in. She's like the bomb. she's really, really great. And so basically, you know, we loaded up some credit cards. We took a chance and bought a space that we couldn't afford, or didn't buy, but we rented a place that we couldn't afford. The funny thing about starting a business is that you start doing things with your business partners that you never thought you would do before. Like, Brian and I went to IKEA together, and he pushed the cart, and it was just the weirdest thing, right? Or like, you're actually physically going to the grocery store and you're getting all the food for people, you know? You are sort of like in charge of the whole kit and caboodle. So essentially what you have to do is just make sure that you're bringing in enough money to be able to cover that, you know, and get out of debt. So we were able to pay off our debt within 3 months. We got lucky. We got a campaign for Cvs Pharmacy, and it was beautiful. It was this beautiful cell animated campaign, but it was set to like Sarah McLachlan. It was just so cheesy. And it was like heartstringy, and you know, you're just supposed to cry, and it was just like, you know. But you know, that was a really good billing project that was 12 spots, you know, and that billed really, really well. So that helped create our foundation. Now with the projects that are not making money, so like Nike, we break even, you have to have projects that are making money so we can keep the lights on, you know, essentially. So that's how it works in the business side of the company. Some things are making more profit, other things are making less profit, if any profit. And it's usually the sexy ones, like, you know, Impossible Present, it cost about almost $120,000 out of our pocket to produce. You know, it's a lot of money. That's out of the bank account. But that also won us, you know, $2 million worth of work. So, which is great. So it's like, that's a great return on your investment. And we got a chance to do something we loved in the studio. You know, it boosted morale, we were proud of it. We weren't beholden to any clients, they were only beholden to me, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but I was like, yeah, make it look like Pixar, you know, so.
Sorry, thanks. What do you say is the best way, or I guess there really is no best way, but a good way to go about trying to find someone to invest in your company's idea? Or where are like the places to look for those type of people?
That's, you know, Kickstarter is always a good, trying to do stuff on Kickstarter that didn't exist back when we were starting. I gotta tell you, it's real hard.
I bet.
It's super hard to raise money.
Yeah, one of my friends is doing a pitch today actually to try and get, you know, some kind of funding, and I've been looking a lot into that to do some like personal ideas with.
Yeah.
But you know, just finding the right people to even show your idea to is kind of like proving to be really difficult.
It is. I essentially was very lucky again. I walked into a bank thinking that I could score 150 grand. I don't know where that was coming from, but I was like, yeah, I got clients, you know, hey, check out my Rolodex. You know, I got Viacom and I got Comedy Central, you know, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna give you $2,500. And I was like, okay, that's not gonna buy, it barely buys a Mac, you know? You don't even get a screen with that, you know? And so luckily my friend Tyler came in and, you know, fronted the 50 grand. And really that just sustained us for a half a month to a month, you know? And then, but that gave us enough time to secure a couple other projects in the meantime while we were growing the company. There was so much buzz about us starting the company. It was actually I wouldn't say it's easy, but it all fell into place. And I'll never forget, because Brian Holman, which I was telling you guys about, Secret Weapon guy, I'll never forget that the first week we were working and we were all like in this little room, and it was during the summer, it was in July, it was freaking hot. I brought in my air, this is how it almost started. I almost suggested to start it in my studio apartment in LA, which at the time was going through a breakup, and I was in the studio apartment, whatever, and Brian's like, I don't want to be seeing you coming out in your bathrobe and some bubble bath or whatever, and I'm like, I don't bubble bath. So anyway, so basically we got a space, and then we ended up, you know, going down that road, and then Brian looked at me, and he has a wife, and his wife thinks that what we do is we play with computers, so she doesn't quite understand that it's, you know, this is tough stuff that we do. And Brian looks at me and he's like, you know what? I'm ready to work. And I was like, oh my God. And that just, my stomach just was like, you know, and I was like, I just sold these guys, Jen and Brian, to give up their lives to make this thing happen. And that was, you know, I wrote the business plan, I secured the funding, I did it all, and I said, come along with us Friday, I'm gonna make it work. And when Brian did that, I was like, okay, we're booking a flight to New York. I had met this guy in San Francisco who just happened to be the head writer of Comedy Central one day at Starbucks. It was like really, actually it was in Oakland. It was like bizarre. And he said, you know, if you ever want to come to New York and talk to anybody at Comedy Central, let me know. So I called him up, went to New York. We walked up, I told, you know, he introduced me to another guy. He said, I want to rebrand your network. And he said, yeah, why don't we give it a couple years? And then he said, but I do have this project I think you guys would be really good for, which is Indecision 2008. And so then we flew to New York. I met Jon Stewart, did a shoot with him. I was like, is this happening? You know, and then that started, and then we got the Cvs Pharmacy gig, and then we did Flaunt Diesel, and then we started getting, it just, the momentum started, you know, and then that's how it all started, you know, and then now we're 2 studios and 75 people and a lot of, you know, a lot of stuff happening now. It's pretty cool.
Jason, we got time for one more over here by Eric.
Okay.
Hey, as the forward-thinking entrepreneur, can you talk a bit about the new markets that you've got your eye on for ad integration?
Mobile. Digital. That's where it's all going. It's going to be happening. Anybody who's not on that bandwagon is not going to make it, I think. I will say that now. I think that any company that's not thinking in the digital space, they just actually announced today in Adweek that they're just about to up the revenue source in digital and decrease it in broadcast. So just saying, digital's where it's at. So y'all better get used to web and mobile apps and all that stuff if you aren't already. I'm sure you are. All right, thank you guys so much.